I'd like to start by asking you, so your report said that mid-sized cities are the key to growth. Does that mean that if you look 10 or 20 years in the future in Indonesia, you would expect more growth in Bandung, Surabaya, and Makassar than in Jakarta?
Jakarta will still grow very fast, and it's already obviously has a very large personal disposable income. But Jakarta has a resiliency problem. It's so big, it's very complex, systems on systems. And one of the things about Jakarta is its susceptibility to natural disasters. So that's a big check, and we found that in our research, a big threat to Jakarta's growth. And something that as it gets larger and larger, is much more difficult to manage. Whereas the smaller sized cities actually have a bit more of an advantage there, because not only do you have sort of the ability to go backwards and look at Jakarta, see what kind of changes you need to make as you grow, but also being a bit smaller, those challenges are easier to address. And sort of the sweet spot is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million people. You get things right at that point in time, and if infrastructure develops at that point in time, then it's much easier to progress.
That's a sweet spot for when a city starts growing well.
Starts growing well, and starts, once you get much bigger than that, and you haven't addressed problems, then it's much more difficult to tackle this problem.
It's because you have too many people living on the ground and actually do the work.
Exactly.
That's interesting. And you also mentioned we see more elected officials with more power. Now here, obviously, President Jokowi stepped into the presidency having no national experience before. He had run 2 different cities. He had run Solo and Jakarta. Is this a trend of mayors stepping into executive roles nationally that you would expect to continue?
I think all over the world, that to the extent that it displaces sort of national level structures, probably not. Right? So the nation state will still be the way that we organize ourselves. But also, it's not only at the level of mayor or governor, but even beyond that. So even smaller, what we call micro officials. So people that manage districts, people that manage even smaller sort of sub-cities in cities. Increasingly, those people will be elected to, right? Because there's more ability, there's more data to judge their performance, and more desire for accountability by citizens.
And so you're talking not just about devolution of power from the national to the urban level, but devolution of power within the city down to the district level.
Exactly.
Yes. And people will expect more accountability from their officials.
Yeah, and so the trend of data, that's where a lot of the accountability possibly comes from. So you are able, as a citizen, to not only contribute to the data, but also to monitor the performance of your officials as well. And that ability to use that data will drive the devolution.
And you said that we're not going to get rid of the nation state anytime soon, but as a country's policies become more oriented toward cities and toward growing cities, what does that look like in practice? What is a good sort of national urban-oriented policy look like?
It's so the one thing that urban areas need to get correct is coordination within the urban environment. So the Rockefeller Foundation has this 100 Resilient Cities program, and what they do is that they fund basically what they call the Chief Resilience Officer. Obviously the issues are different, but the primary role of this officer is to coordinate between various departments in the city in order to promote resilience. And they have a very broad concept of resilience, so obviously they have a different agenda, but that coordinating function is something that a lot of other areas lack.
A chief resilience officer.
A large overarching coordinating function. Yes. So chief resilience officer is a good way to do it because it's through the lens of resilience. But I think more national level structures or urban level structures will have that.
And you said that there's not really a coordination between size and competitiveness as far as cities go. I wonder, when you think about big megacities that function, cities of over 2 million people, Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo, New York, what do they get right that sort of larger, less functional cities get wrong?
So for our study, one thing they get right is financial system. So all of those, one thing in common is that the financial system is mature, it's open, legislation is very clear, and that's very good. They do have very good infrastructure too, some better than others. And actually, infrastructure, if it's aging, it's much better than if it's not there. Right? So a lot of cities that are large, newer, developing countries, infrastructure is not there. So those are, I think, are the two things that are most common about that.
And is there a particular type of infrastructure that's most important? Power, water, transport?
It's all of them. So cities are systems, and you need to get all of them functioning correctly. So you can't focus just on one. And even things like education, those kinds of things matter.
And does the city have to be diverse to be successful?
Not necessarily, but cities, just by the nature of how they attract people, how they attract businesses, just really competitive. So, in the people who are looking for jobs come from all over the country, and then a city that has international traffic, businesses are sending employees from all over the world. So it's sort of a natural function of cities getting larger, especially from an economic standpoint, that I get more diverse.
If you had a business and you were looking to invest into Indonesia, would you look to come into Jakarta or into one of the mid-sized cities at this point?
You can't ignore Jakarta. I mean, obviously, to some extent, it depends on what business it is, but you couldn't ignore Jakarta. There are a whole bunch of mid-sized cities, 10 cities that you couldn't ignore in Indonesia. But then also, there are smaller second and third tier cities that are becoming very, very
The flip side of the story of cities growing more competitive is what happens to the rest of the country. As a country's national policy becomes more oriented toward helping its cities grow, what happens to the countryside? What happens to people living in the countryside? What happens to small towns?
Actually, when urban areas grow, it's even more important to take care of rural areas. So you need to get rural infrastructure correct. You need to ensure there's education there. You need to do a lot of things to do similar to cities. Because the last thing that you want is people abandoning rural areas to come to cities at a rate where the city can't handle that kind of growth. So you want the city to attract them economically and for various other social and cultural reasons. But you can't have the rural area be a push factor. Because that's something that city will be able to handle.
So as you develop your cities, you have to make sure that they grow at the right level. And the way you do that is by basically treating smaller towns and rural areas the way you treat cities. That's very interesting. Thank you. Pak Ridwan, I'd love to ask you heard my colleague Usmana say that the one thing a city has to get right is coordination. And I wonder, as mayor, what is your reaction to that? How do you get coordination right?
Thank you for the questions. Bandung is a mid-sized city, 2.5 million populations. Yeah. Every day I receive extra 1 million who live outside Bandung. So there are 4 cities surrounding Bandung. Yeah. So before, it's very difficult for me to really coordinate because when there is a flood issue, it's really river crisscrossing all the cities, yeah, not only Bandung. When it comes to traffic also, I receive these commuters also. When I talk about the mass transportation, sometimes I can deal with my own issues, but it's not really Bandung issue, it's really a region issue. In West Java, thankfully, the next 3 months, we will have a working units to coordinate these 4 cities. We call it the Mega Bandung Development Coordination Units under the provincial governments. So I'm really hoping that within this new coordination body, we can discuss the issue not only about Bandung, but the greater Bandung, so we can have a better future using the new coordinations. I think coordination is an issue. And to say also about the mid-sized city, for some reason, the biggest growth is coming from us. Yeah? Bandung grow 7.7%. Makassar grow, I think, close to 9%. Compared to other cities, compared to Indonesia, it's quite very high. So I'm very much concerned about the future of our economy. But the good thing about Indonesia, I want to tell the audience, is I'm the product of the democracy, the new democracy in Indonesia. I was an architect before I worked as a mayor. I was also a lecturer at ITB, so I have 17 years working in the global economy. Before 2013, I decided to run for politics. Yeah. And after 2.5 years as a mayor, I learned we can make decisions 75% by my own. Yeah. The rest of 25, I have to consult with the governor and to the ministry of the president, for example. So the power of local leaders is really, really big. Yeah? So if this big power can be used with very productive way, I think Indonesia can accelerate very in the speed of very fast.
Can I ask you, you can do 75%, and then the 25% you have to coordinate. What falls into that 25%? When do you find yourself coordinating what's going on?
In Indonesian law, there are 5 things that me as mayor cannot make decision. Number 1 is foreign policy. Yeah. Number 2 is defense, the TNI. So I cannot directly order the generals in Bantu. Security, the police, not like in America, the police is under the mayor. Here, the police reporting directly to higher ranks. Yeah. Number 4 is religion. So I cannot make decision. Even though there are religious issues in my city, I have to comply with the national. Number 5 is judicial, the law. So beyond that 5 things, I can make decisions.
You can't do foreign policy, but yet Bandung, as Simon pointed out, declared itself a human rights state. I wonder if you can tell me, why did you decide to do that, and what does that mean in practice? A human rights state?
I'm going to fundamentals. Yeah. When I become a mayor, I check my first 6 months is really auditing what's the problem. So I found that I have to go fundamental. What is fundamentals? I started commitment with KPK for anti-corruption programs. I started to see if there is no human rights really foundations. I don't think Bandung can become the really model city for future that can be regarded as one of the great world cities. So this is my dream. Also going to smart city because by giving the management of city going to digital and technology, like you said, we are now very efficient. We have online complaint, for example, the last 1 year, we have 10,000 complaints, 90% solved because of digital communications. So I think by having these good fundamentals, I can lay the good foundation for future city of Bandung. Today I make a very historic decision. I want to share you a very important news. This morning I made a historical decision that all the micro businesses in Bandung no need to have permit to open business. So please come to Bandung. You just need to inform the mayor to register online. We have the apps called Gampil. Yeah? You download the apps, you notify us that you have business tomorrow, for example. I will do the random checking for issues to make sure the business is not violating any local laws. But this is how I see, because my background was entrepreneur architect, so I know this issue. So hopefully, if Indonesian cities, the rest 500 city and region can follow what Bandung did this morning, I'm very optimistic we can be more competitive, for this thing. So if you have businesses overseas, but in the micro scale, you can join the Bandung people and go directly do business in Bandung. But I'm also focused on investment. This semester we opened the groundbreaking, $100 million investment from UTC, an aerospace company from United States. I told them, look, if you want to invest in Indonesia, you have 2 doors. You go directly to the national government, that's 1 door, or you go directly to me as mayor, local leaders. I make 75% decision. So this UTC go directly to me. I said to this UTC CEO, I can be your butler. You have to sit down and let me fix the red tape of the investment. That's my service. So $100 million now underway. And I asked the CEO, why you choose Bandung? And he showed me three things. Hey, Mr. Mayor, number one, you have world-class engineers. So I'm very happy to, it's not from me, that's from the UTC CEO. Number two, you have more livable quality of life relative to other cities. We are the happiest society in Indonesia. We score high in happiness index. We score 70.6. For Indonesian standard, that they had one of the happiest society in Indonesia. Number three, the CEO said, you have affordable cost of living. So now, wherever I go, I tell the three quality of Bandung for investor.
Let me ask you two questions following on that. Micro business, what does that mean?
Micro business is a business with value maximum around 10,000 US dollar. Yeah, we call it micro business. But the business beyond the micro, we already have an online platform. So in Bandung, you will register your permit online. You pay the fee for permit online, and we deliver the document of permit to your homes. This is a reformation I did last year. So before thousands of people doing business, you meet the middleman, you get take kind of treatment, so bad. Yeah. But now, if you do business in Bandung, no need to meet my official help. You just sit down nicely at your home, do your things online. That's come from my perspective as an ex-business person coming to politics.
And can I ask another question following on from my colleague's presentation? Infrastructure.
Yeah.
Tell me your approach to philosophy.
This is very important to know for all of you. After 2.5 years, I learned why Indonesian economy in city is too slow. Yeah. This is my own conclusion. Why? Because the way we spend is too conventional. I have X dollar, I spend that X dollar for everything. I wait for another X dollar next year and spend that another X dollar for everything. Yeah. So it's bit by bit process. When I went to London, invited by the embassy, I learned in UK cities, all the things in the city built by private sector. The hospital, the prison, the roads. So the mayor paid the private sector for long term 25 to 30 years. Yeah. It's a very common thing for business. So now I told Pak Jokowi, Pak, let me try Bandung to be the first city to open for PPP, public-private partnership, either for commercial infrastructure, which has some income value, or social infrastructure doesn't have income value, like schools, like roads. Yeah. So now Bandung preparing the package. We need $6 billion investment to create a better Bandung. So in short, the work of 4 mayors will be compressed only for 1 term mayor. I think to summarize my dream. And you multiply this concept to 500 cities.
Yes.
So that's how big the size. If Bandung needs 6 billion, multiplied by 500, there are 3,000 billion US dollar waiting to be exercised as a new economy of Indonesia. To conclude, when I was in the United States, there is a Harvard professor, I forgot the name, he told me, hey Mayor, Indonesia can be great in 2 ways. Yes, Mr. Professor. And he said, number 1, you have a Superman president, or you have United Mayors. So I'm interested to do the second thing. So I can unite the whole mayor in Indonesia, 500 of them, to be more progressive like Bandung and other cities, and Indonesia can be a great economy.
Is there a mayor of another city around the world who you take as a model? Is there a mayor from around the world of another city that you take as a model? Who do you admire? Who's gotten the job right?
Entrepreneur mayor is everywhere basically. My idol was Curitiba mayor once, Jamie Lerner. I like Bogota mayor also, really changing the economy and changing the life of the people with the new thinking. Yeah. Next week I'm going to Canada. I'm invited to speak on behalf of ASEAN mayors, but the economic ASEAN community in front of CEOs around the world in Vancouver. This message also I want to say here, that in Indonesia it's a big opportunity, but when you see the economy in the city, it's really overlooked. People from overseas, if you come to Indonesia, is always talking about the big business, connecting with central government. But they never really go to meet to the local leaders. Now I offer you this perspective. Come to us, local leaders, we give you opportunities bit by bit, but if you multiply by 500, that's a big size. 3,000 billion US dollars, that was my calculations.
What do you offer the private sector to develop infrastructure?
Yeah. Number one is fundamental. I'm securing the law. Yeah. So for the PPP, if you come build my hospital, I pay you 25 years. Regardless who is the mayor, must respect the investment. So number one, the president released the presidential decree, peraturan presiden for the PPP. Then come the regulation from the Ministry of Finance also for the PPP. And Bandung is the first city also to have the PPP law. We call it multi-year contract law to protect the investment. So whoever become a mayor or the parliament must respect this long term. So once this secure, the 6 billion in the form of LRT project, in the form of real big hospital, in the form of cable car projects, we can pay the investor. It's already investor coming from Korea last week, for example.
To build?
Yeah, Mr. Ridwan, this is the hospital we designed in Iran. We would like to design and build and invest in Bandung. They call it BLT. We build, BTL, sorry. We build, we transfer to you, and you lease to pay for 15 years, or annual 15 years contract. So this is moving. Yeah? So imagine this kind of new things multiplied to hundreds of projects. That's how big the size of Indonesian cities economy in the future. Instead of, we are very conventional using X dollar to spend bit by bit for everything. That's why, that's my enlightenment, yeah. How I can bring Indonesia economy from the perspective of United Mayors.
Thank you, Pak Ridwan. Before I start my conversation with Ibu Noni Purnomo, who is the CEO of Bluebird, I'd like to remind you to vote on our app. The question for this session is, can Indonesia's developing cities avoid Jakarta's mistakes? And so that'll turn to Ibu Noni, but Bluebird Group, I'm sure that every person in this room has ridden in one of her cars at one point or another.
I hope so.
How many cities are you in?
At this moment, we're in 20 cities in Indonesia. That would include the smaller cities surrounding the big cities.
And I assume your biggest fleet is in Jakarta.
Our biggest fleet at this moment is still in Jakarta, because Jakarta is still representing the largest economy in Indonesia at this moment. But we also look into the second-tier cities. And we have already, that's the reason why we invested in 20 cities around Indonesia. So we now are operating already in the second tier and even the third tier cities in Indonesia.
I wonder if you can tell me, how do you dispatch and monitor and control a fleet of thousands of cars in a city as sprawling and complex as Jakarta?
As complicated as Jakarta, with a lot of challenges and a lot of traffic jams. I think what is in Jakarta, we're operating about almost 18,000 taxis around Jakarta and surrounding area, and we started implementing the global positioning system in our taxis in 2003. So this was a while ago. The reason for that was that because we needed to have a very lean and efficient operations, and especially because what is important for us because of our business model is that every single car, when they travel, it is very important for us to have a passenger most of the time. It's not because of economic reason only, but also because it's more environmentally friendly. Because the last thing we want is for the car to go around and do nothing and just just giving CO2 to the air, right? So that's the beginning. And then we introduced the use of taxi mobile reservation through the handphone in year 2011. So that helps us in sending the nearest possible taxi to the nearest customer. And we managed to improve our efficiency that way. And because of that also we are able to monitor the productivity of each car. And because we have some exclusive agreement with a lot of malls, a lot of hotels, we also can direct the drivers so that they can go to the areas where the demands are more because of the system. And on top of that, we can use the system for safety measurement as well, because we're monitoring the speed of each car. Because there are speed limits everywhere, even though a lot of Indonesians really love to drive very, very fast, but we do monitor our drivers. So for safety reason and for operational efficiencies, we use the data for that.
What's your biggest frustration in operating in Jakarta?
The biggest frustration is the traffic jam. I think it's everybody's frustration. You know, but don't ask me how to fix that issues because, you know, I'm not the governor. But that is the biggest frustration.
And are there challenges common to all Indonesian cities?
The traffic jam?
The traffic jam beyond the traffic jam.
Our challenges?
Your challenge.
There are different challenges each time we open in different cities. But the biggest challenge for us is actually infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, it's not just the road, it's also the network coverage. Especially because, again, we rely on the data. That means we rely on the telecom networks. We rely on the GPRS, which we rely on the 3Gs. And as we all know, that not all even second-tier cities in Asia are really have this kind of advanced infrastructure. So even when we tried to introduce payment by using credit card, 5 years ago, then we have difficulties finding the right place with a very good network. So we do have those problems in other cities. Jakarta is relatively good. Bandung is relatively good. Surabaya is relatively good. But once you go out of those cities, and in the beginning, we even have to build and draw our own map before Google Maps is on, because we're talking about 2003. So we do have those challenges.
So you built your own full interactive map?
In 2003, yes.
And then you could track your drivers on that?
Yes.
But how many rides do you offer a day in Jakarta? How many passengers do you take each day in Jakarta?
At this moment we have about 15 rides per day. And out of those, actually the one that is using the app is only 20%. Most of our rides are actually from the networks, from the counter, from the hotel, from the malls, and also hailing from the street.
Which cities are you growing fastest in? And beyond that, what does that tell you about how Indonesian cities are growing? So where are you investing most? And if you look 10 or 20 years in the future, which cities do you think will grow the most?
Jakarta is still the fastest. The next one is Surabaya, Bali, Bandung. And Medan is the next one, but it's much slower still compared to the 3 cities.
Which cities do you think are growing best?
The cities that are growing best after Jakarta is still Surabaya, because Surabaya have the business infrastructure, have the factories, have the supporting infrastructure there, and have the surrounding areas with established industries as well.
I want to ask about other modes of transportation here. One reason that taxis thrive here is that there's negligible modes of public transportation. There's an MRT being built here now. Is that something you are looking forward to? Is it something you're afraid of because you think it might fit into your business?
If our biggest challenge is traffic jam, we certainly hope that the MRT is going to run very, very soon. Unfortunately, we think that it's not integrated enough, so we need more. Because it will only solve one line, and the traffic jam issues in Jakarta is so complicated. So yes, we are fully supportive of the public transport. Because if we see the more advanced cities outside of Jakarta, outside of Indonesia, like Singapore or even Japan, the taxi penetration in Singapore is still 2.3 taxis per 1,000 population. And Singapore have really good public transport. And Indonesia, the taxi penetration throughout Indonesia is only 1.3 per 1,000 population. Jakarta is still 1.7. So I think the opportunity is still big. So we don't see public transport as a threat. We see it as a supporting means for our operational efficiency.
And so in your view, taxis, MRTs, buses, these are all elements of things the city has to get right and coordinate.
Yes, because it's just different.
Yeah.
Because the public transport like MRT is a point-to-point public transport. Taxi is a door-to-door. So it's a different type of public transport. We're not competing, we're supporting each other.
I wonder, you see the MRT is not integrated enough. Does that mean it's not big enough or it's not well placed enough, or both?
No, it's a start. I'm just saying that we really wish that there would be more and more MRT around in Jakarta so that it would help with the traffic congestion.
Yeah. From your perspective, both as a business owner and a resident, and I assume an occasional passenger in one of your taxis, what are the mistakes Jakarta made that other cities can avoid?
Grow too fast? I think it's good to grow very, very fast, but if you're not ready, I think you mentioned this earlier as well, right? I mean, once you're 1.5 to 2 million people, then you have to really plan for the future. I think Jakarta missed that opportunity on that time to be able to have a very good urban planning and to plan for a longer future. So I think that's the biggest issues for Jakarta. It's just too congested, it's too crowded. It grew very rapidly in a very short time without the support of the infrastructure.
And I wonder, I'd love to ask that same question to both of you. Everyone, from your view, what are the mistakes that Jakarta made that you were trying to avoid?
I think the horizontalism of Jakarta is a mistake, where you grow horizontally without really preparing connections. I worked 7 years working in China projects. The Chinese always build the roadway first, then develop the civilizations. In Indonesia, you create a state civilization, then the infrastructure follow with many problems because you hit this, hit that, and so on and so on. Yeah? So I think that would be my observation. That's why in Bandung, while it's possible, I'm creating a compact size kind of city. Yeah? So I'm fixing the old city of Bandung. I'm preparing the new city in the east of Bandung called Bandung Technopolis. I want to create a really modern city. This is where the UTC American company will have some headquarters. I want to create a world-class, livable, compact, walkable city to show that the future of city must be very walkable, livable, and kind of thing. Second is, this is my plea to my central government. Public transportation is too expensive for local city like us to finance. We don't have money. It's very simple mathematics. Unless the central government really put the high interest to solve these metropolitan issues, I don't think there is any solutions. Unless Pak Jokowi give me money to build my LRT, cable car, buses, I don't think Surabaya will survive or Bandung will survive in the next 10 to 20 years. When I ask this petition, the reply is always, hey, but we have to give money evenly to the rest of Indonesia, to Sulawesi. But I said, look, you have, fair is a proportional thing. Yeah. You don't have to put money everywhere in the same portion, but metropolitan like me has a specific issue. So that's why I always ask, please stop. Because I remember last month, there is a venture capital from California coming to Bandung. I said, please invest in my creative economy. And Mr. Ridwan, your problem is connection. If you don't have better connection, I cannot invest. It's too costly for us from California to Bandung. That's why I'm very happy if this high-speed train will in place. There is LRT also coming. So for me, creating a better Bandung or better Jakarta is creating a better connection. And that's where the central government must come to do things. Not rely to the money from local government, never. So that's my observation.
Well, let me ask Sumana the same question. As someone who studies cities around the world, what does Jakarta get wrong? How can other cities avoid that problem?
Yeah, I mean, they said it, right? I think the main thing about Jakarta is visibility. And that needs to be done. There's a lot of urgency around that because of cities such as so, there's two kind of, you have to prepare for just the growth of the city, and you have to prepare for the sudden success. I think that's really the key.
I'd like to open the floor to questions now. Before I do, we have our poll results came in. 97% of you said that other Indonesian cities can avoid Jakarta's mistakes. It just makes me wonder, who's the cynic? Who's the one person? Sorry, open for questions. Yes.
Hi, my name is Arif Mangala. I'm from Errol. Questions for Pak. What is more challenging in fixing Jakarta or fixing West Java?
It's very sensitive question these days. I will make my formal decision next Monday whether I will run to Jakarta governor or state. Here's the thing. Jakarta, for me, is a big city, not a province. So you cannot compare apple to apple between Jakarta and West Java. Yeah. West Java is apple to apple compared to East Java, to Central Java, to Sulawesi, because you have a series of cities and regions. You have mountains, you have beaches, you have many villages with poor people. Jakarta is a bigger size of Bandung. Yeah. So when it comes to problem, Jakarta is comparable to Bandung as a city. Just because the status of Jakarta is provincial, yeah. But in a true situation, it's a city to city. So my problem with Ahok is the same. I'm fighting the slums, I'm fighting the traffic, I'm fighting floods, for example, and so on and so on. It's very comparable. That's why, from the political analysis, somebody told me, hey, Mr. Mayor, the only group of people who can compete with Ahok is the local leaders, because they are able to act. So I think, for me, the question, the answer is not comparable. Yeah, to compare which one is easier to fix Jakarta or fix Java. But if you compare to Jakarta and Bandung, then I can say, yeah, both can be fixed. But for me, number one is connection. Once you fix the connection, everything somehow will automatically find a way to be coordinated and create a better future.
How do you fix Jakarta?
How I fix Jakarta? I'll let you know when I get elected.
Is that a declaration?
But for me, I'm a big. My undergrad is an architect, undergraduate study. I went to UC Berkeley for my urban design, so urban planning is always my thing. So for me, Jakarta is urban planning issues. Yeah, I reform the government like Ahok. I tell you, in 2 years, I'm using smart city. I'm going digital. I went digital. Now, after 2 years. Before 2013, when I first started as a mayor, my public service quality is very bad. Red score from Ombudsman. Now we rank number 4 after I fixed the public service. Open government, we were ranked number 17, now we rank number 3. And the best thing is government performance, accountability index. 2 years ago it was ranked 200. Now I'm happy to say 2 weeks ago, the central government awarded Bandung is number 1. So by reforming the bureaucracy, going digital, I lock the bad habits and culture of slow. Yeah. I reduce the corruption opportunities by going online and so on and so on. So I think Jakarta and Bandung, in terms of bureaucracy reform, is the same. But the problem is only the size of urban planning issues. So if you ask me how to fix, I will go directly to urban planning. And Bandung is the happier sister of Jakarta. So we are not the same like Jakarta. We consume cafes, we consume shopping malls. But people of Bandung stay in the city parks more. They love the weekend, they enjoy the life. It's all very high administration. Because my belief, okay, Indonesia is still developing country, Bandung developing city, but when it comes to happiness, we are quite very proud that we are happy society. So that's very important. And air quality, we are number one. So Bandung is the cleanest sky for metropolitan cities in Indonesia. And with that quality, I can bring the same recipe to Jakarta.
More questions? What does Jakarta get right? What does Jakarta get right? That's a question I'd love to ask each of you.
I think, of course, different governments did something right somehow, right? I was asked during the lunch meeting that I had earlier from our foreign investor, what is new in Jakarta? And I said, what is new is that this year in February, is almost at the end of February, and Jakarta has not had a really massive bad flood. I think that's new. Yeah, and you agree, right? So it is February. It's normally the worst time, and it's relatively good. So that means there is something that is good being done. And I think even though there were a lot of challenges, the building of the MRT, and also the additional flyovers and additional infrastructures, I think those are the things that Jakarta are trying to amend to support the livelihood of Jakarta itself.
Do you know what the target date for completion is for the MRT?
Date, I'm not sure. 2018 is the year.
2018. Let's do a quick yes/no question. How many of you believe that Jakarta will have a functioning MRT by 2018? That's a fairly, I think the no's have it, but not by much. It's a fairly hopeful crowd.
That's okay. Jakarta still have bluebird taxis.
They still have Uber taxis. Let me ask you that same question, talking about what does Jakarta get right?
I would say the same, because there is some annual things happening here, mostly in February when the rainy season is the highest, is the flood thing. And I think bureaucracy is better. Yeah. From the testimony, from the news, I feel the same also, because we are doing the same recipe for reform in the government. That's basically what I can say of today's Jakarta. The rest is, if I might to add, is bringing more human kind of approach to the city, because this is too economic machine kind of city. Give less to human side of daily things, daily routine in Jakarta. That would be my suggestion also. Because I never see any single Jakartan posting photo in the city. I never see. They always photo selfies in the cafes, selfie in the shopping mall, indoors. It's always indoors. But compared to Bandung, almost 80% my people always post photo in the city parks, in the river, in the sidewalk, sitting in the outdoors. That's totally different. So my suggestion is to humanize more Jakarta, less good combination between outdoor and indoor. This is too indoor-oriented society.
And the same question to you, Simon, as some of the studies did around the world. What does Jakarta get right?
I think two things. So one is, and I don't know whether this is sort of a policy decision It just happens because of the social psyche of Jakarta. But it's a city that's been through a lot of strife, all types of strife, like political strife, natural disasters, all that sort of thing. And it has managed diversity very well. So people from all over Indonesia come to Jakarta, and it seems to be a very friendly city on top of all the kinds of pressures in the city. So I think, like I said, I don't know where that comes from, but that's something Jakarta does well. The other thing which I don't think that many people give it credit for is that its financial architecture is actually relatively mature. I mean, it does serve at the whole level, and to that extent, actually, not enough credit. If you compare it to sort of international best practices and that type of thing, maybe not so much, but in terms of regionally hard countries, this financial architecture, I think that's pretty good.
What is, in this case, what is financial architecture? People have access to credit.
Yeah, so better access to credit, the kind of legislation that you have around personal banking, that sort of things. Those have been done very well. Even sort of on a national level, it's not really Jakarta, but independence of the central bank. Those sort of things that peter down into people's lives.
Any questions from the floor? We've got about 2 minutes left. Yes. There's a microphone coming. I think I can also translate for you.
My name is Rikard from Norway. I'd like to ask a question about infrastructure, public transport, and electronic road pricing. That is one thing that many countries did get, or many cities did get right. London, Oslo, Stockholm, Gothenburg, all managed to do this and then use the proceeds from the electronic road pricing to beef up the public transport. I'd be interested, you talk about avoiding the problems of the economy, especially to clarify maybe to the panel also. To what extent could these approaches be implemented in the second level cities in Indonesia, electronic road pricing as a tool to reduce congestion down there?
Yes, I will give you the bad news. I filed for ERP law 2 months ago. It was rejected by my local parliament. I lobby, I try to educate, didn't work. They say, look, Mr. Mayor, since our public transportation is not really there yet, you cannot impose this concept because people will don't have a choice. So they think, which makes sense, is once you have a good setup of public transportation in general, then the idea of this limited access by ERP can work. So I think for Bandung, I have to wait for another 3 to 4 years before we start implementing the ERP because of this dilemma of options of mobility.
Thank you. Thank you. I think with that, we're about out of time. Our next panel will be my colleague Robert Guest interviewing Thomas Lembong, who's the Trade Minister of Indonesia. Before they come up, please help me in thanking this outstanding panel.